Here was some legal analysis as former Manhattan prosecutor Jeremy Saland. Look, there is a lot to talk about here when it comes to Donald Trump and the amount of cases. I want to start in Georgia, though. In particular there, I want your reaction to Trump wanting to separate his case from the others. Is this typical? What is the significance here?
Well, it makes sense that he wants to sever the case. He doesn't necessarily want to be with all of these lesser people, just as the lesser people, if that's the right term to use, don't want to be with him. The last thing he wants to see happen is during the course of a trial, these other people who are lower on that proverbial food chain saying, I was listening to Trump. He's sitting right there. His advisors, his attorneys were telling me what to do. So it's in his advantage to be separate and apart from some of these individuals because they all collectively will look worse together than separate and apart.
And, you know, it's not just Trump. We've seen other defendants trying to separate their cases from each other. But, you know, the thing that jumps out to me, I mean, is that possible in this case? How difficult is it going to be for these defendants to truly separate their cases from each other when I think it's fair to say they're on the same indictment? There's a lot of overlap here when it comes to the evidence that's being presented.
Well, when you have that many defendants on an indictment, first of all, it's not atypical that there are times when you just separate them from a practical standpoint. So that is not something that is completely unheard of. And when you think of, for example, Schaefer, or when you think of, for example, even Cheesebro and Powell, what they want to do is they want to be separate for their reasons, because if they go first, some of these people go first, they don't have to worry about the fingers being pointed at them. If they're first in time, there's less likely that someone's cooperating at that point. Now, the people who go later have the opportunity to say, well, now I've heard what's happened. I'm more prepared. They're going to watch that trial. So there's a lot of reasons why you'd want to separate. You don't want to be associated with all of the bad things that other people may have done that you're not accused of doing, even though, again, it's a RICO type conspiracy. So there's countless reasons and good reasons why you want to separate. Just very basically, I don't want to be part of that big picture. Those people are separate from me. I'm on an island. Don't associate me with the bad guys.
And separation from each other, defendants-wise, is one thing, but also Mark Meadows is trying to get the case moved to federal court. What is the likelihood? We're waiting to see if that effort will be granted, but what is the likelihood of that happening? And why would someone like Mark Meadows be doing that in this situation?
Well, I'll work a little bit backwards here. Why is an obvious reason. First of all, when you're taking a jury pool out of Fulton County, which will likely lean far more blue than red, it's to your advantage to grab a larger jury pool. When you have removal, the state case is still prosecuted. The state crimes are still prosecuted, but they're prosecuted in a venue federally, so that expands that jury pool beyond that one particular county in Georgia. There's an advantage there. Additionally, as we know, there's no cameras and videos allowed. So the public can't see the vulnerability of some of these people and hear everything in real time like they will in a Georgia state case. There's an advantage to that too to them. They don't want that to happen. But basically the standard is I was working under the color of my office, in particular Meadows, as the chief of staff. And I have to show that I have a colorable defense. It doesn't have to be beyond a reasonable doubt, but that there was a connection of my actions to my office. But the difficulty there, and I think he will ultimately fail, for example, is that how do you say I was offering campaign dollars to Fulton County or pardon me, to Georgia to say, let's speed up this recount, this signature review process. Well, that's certainly not your role to get involved in those local elections in the state of Georgia. And it's certainly not your role in furtherance of your position to offer campaign money. So that's very difficult. I think, as I described it before, it was a white knuckle day for him, Meadows. I think he fails.
Yeah, and quickly before we go, the judge here approves that the case to be televised, live streamed. What sort of an impact does that have on a case, especially a high-profile one like this?
I think it's very dangerous for the president, former president, and all of those defendants, because it's one thing for me to turn on the news or look online and see a story and read it. It's another thing, as we know, that people watching since the days of O.J. Simpson get infatuated with this stuff, to see in real time and understand, well, wait a second, this is the evidence, this is the testimony, this is the admission, this is all that's coming out. That could be extremely damning, as I'm actually seeing it and not relying on some talking head like myself to say it. I can see it personally. That is very powerful.
Yeah. Well, Jeremy Saland will undoubtedly have an impact on politics as well, but thank you for the time.
Jeremy Saland, to us, you are more than just a talking head, I promise. All right, still ahead, President Biden will travel to Florida today to survey the damage